Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the stage. My name is Jordan French. I'm a journalist on the editorial staff at TheStreet.com financial news publication, also the publisher of Grit Daily. With me is Grant Langston, CEO of eHarmony, 45 million users on the app. Grant, welcome to Web Summit. Welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Jordan. Happy to be here.
I think you have some news for the audience to share from last week.
That's right. I think we are all very happy to share that eHarmony was acquired. It's been many, many months of hard work. It's a company called ProSieben, German telecom giant. They have a subsidiary called Parship, and we're very excited about working with a very large, well-capitalized partner to extend our matchmaking umbrella around the world.
Certainly, Grant, eHarmony has been a pioneer in the dating industry. It started a few decades ago. At this point, and a pioneer in many ways. One of those ways in which eHarmony was a pioneer was in adopting early on artificial intelligence engines, machine learning. Yeah. Tell us, though, for the audience, how have those things been valuable for users of eHarmony?
Well, it's funny to me, I hear a lot of people talking about personalization or artificial intelligence and how you can design a product to be more suited for one person or another person. But of course, that's our whole business. And it was the first day we started. We don't provide one kind of match for you. We ask you questions about yourself, and what is important to you and your personality, and then we go and build a completely personalized process for you. So we have been doing this a long time. That doesn't mean we've always done a great job of it or that we haven't gotten a lot better. But the genesis of our company was research on married couples. And we took a couple thousand married couples and we gave them a questionnaire to find out how happy they were. And predictably, you had a group of very happy people, somewhat unhappy people, and very unhappy people. And we threw the two middle groups out, and we just asked ourselves, why is this group very happy? They've been together for decades, and they still like each other. And these couples are very unhappy. What is the difference between these two groups? And what we found was that the people who were very happy had about 30 foundational traits that were similar. And the people that were unhappy were missing large chunks of these traits. And so we came to believe that people who are similar in foundational ways have a better long-term relationship together. That's because they have less friction. It's not a terrible thing to have some differences, but couples that have a lot of differences, the friction every day of compromise, what tends to happen is after 5 or 6 or 8 years, one of the people just says, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. And the marriage or the relationship breaks apart. Couples that are well matched in these ways, they don't even understand sometimes why their relationship is so good. It just seems to ride easy. And that's because they have a lot of fundamental agreement about the areas of life. Just to give you an example of something that we match on that I think not a lot of people think about, but ambition. If you are a person who has a certain opinion about ambition and your partner doesn't share that opinion, it's the kind of thing that gnaws away at the relationship. If you are a person that loves to work, you have a lot of business goals, or you want to be successful, if your partner's not, they may see that as workaholic or as someone that doesn't value the relationship, or why are you gone all the time? You don't understand. The person who is not ambitious, the other person may see them as lazy. So that's just one of the areas that I think people don't think about as being fundamental to success over a long term, and that we discovered was very important.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for that, Grant. One of the things that we've also witnessed, specifically with eHarmony, is a more recent migration from what are very visual, short-term apps, Bumble, Tinder, Match.com stack of dating apps, towards something more long-term Can you tell us why you're starting to see that movement, especially among Gen X, Gen Y, and globally?
Well, part of it is just the human animal. 21-year-olds tend to not really want to be in a serious relationship. And as they move forward, as they, become 20-somethings, late 20-somethings, that increases, and then into their 30s, people just want to build a life with someone. Maybe they don't want marriage, but they want something meaningful. And so if you think back 5, 6, 7 years ago, 20-somethings were not in the online dating market. They just didn't think they needed it. They were doing what young people always do. They were going out with all their friends and meeting people and having relationships that way. And Tinder changed all that. And I think we owe them a real debt of gratitude for bringing the 20-something cohort into the marketplace. But of course, most people don't want to casually date forever. And once you've made that decision that, I think I really want to be with somebody and have a life, maybe build a family, Tinder may not be the best option for you. And so we find that we get a lot of people who have got swipe fatigue and they're ready for a different experience. So it has been a benefit to us in a lot of ways.
So I want to pull out also some of the data that you have. There's a stack of kind of science behind eHarmony's algorithms, its machine learning and how it matches. But when we were talking earlier, there was one particular question or segment, and that was politics.
Yeah.
That was something that perhaps not everyone in the audience would think would be such a mega factor. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, it may seem hard to believe now, but 3 years ago, politics did not seem to factor into online dating very much. Most people felt like if I can be matched with someone that's a good person, that's attractive, that suits me in a number of ways, I don't really care what their politics is. That was the tendency. And about 2016, that all changed. Not surprisingly, maybe. But now politics is a major factor. And it is so pervasive on our platform that we have looked at usage of the word politics in people's profiles, or the word Trump, or the word Brexit. We've looked at how those things have entered the conversation, and people are using those as filters now. It has gone from not being part of the conversation to being the very first filter. Do not bring me a match that is politically conservative. Do not bring me a match that voted for Brexit. People are putting that in profiles. They're telling us that they want more political filtering. And that's the way the world is going. And I don't see that changing. The other thing I would say is there used to be a sort of a waxing and waning of political interest. And perhaps because the American president is a constant source of news, there is no waxing and waning. It has stayed the same as it was in 2016 to today.
Perhaps with everyone's anxiety levels in a way, I think this audience can also relate, for those of you on Facebook or other social media apps, being defriended over some political posts that you might have had on either side. I think globally as well, as world is integrated more and more and paid attention to U.S. politics, and that's migrated its way east and especially into Europe. Speaking of the timeline as well, there's half of this room or more is women, Grant, and oftentimes they don't get enough attention, especially in this subject of dating apps. A lot has changed for women around the world. You look back 30 years, especially 50 years, they didn't have necessarily the income to make the choices that they could today. Certainly 100 years, it's been an absolute extreme contrast. What is the dating market looking like for them?
Well, I think this is a very complicated subject. eHarmony, unlike almost all of our competitors, is majority women. We're probably 55-45. And it tends to be that way because we are about building relationships. The thing that we see, and there was a great New York Times article about this about 6 months ago, that women are now graduating college at a higher rate than men, vastly higher than men, earning more money than men. Certainly they do not need men to reproduce and to have the life that they want to have. And so women are finding that the men they meet are very dissatisfying to them. Has anybody here had that experience? I think there's a lot of women who just feel like dating isn't worth it if these are the men that are out there in the marketplace. And you see a lot of women who sort of say, you know what, I'm out.
They've given up.
I'm giving up. I would love to have a relationship with someone, but I cannot find men who have my economic status or my opportunities. And so that is something that is a big societal problem. And of course, at its core, eHarmony is a marketplace. We just help people come together in a marketplace, and if there's not enough of a certain thing in the marketplace, we can't gin it up. So it's a real challenge for us.
But it must be, though, that these women, they're just too demanding, Grant. They're just too demanding. Or is it the men that just are slackers?
Well, I don't know that men are slackers. I think that we've just come to a place where women have a tremendous power and a tremendous success, and for whatever reason, men have not been able to keep up. And it's not a problem that we can fix very well, right? For a lot of people, economic status is a very, very important factor. And I can match you with a man that's compatible with you, such that on paper you'll have a really good relationship together. But if he is not someone who has a job that, puts him in your category, a lot of women just aren't interested in meeting him. And I totally understand that. But this is one of the problems we have to deal with.
Certainly, Grant, given often times we're finding women are more educated, more and more often have higher income. Perhaps we'll see some more seahorse dads taking care of children or turn towards the services and perhaps see some role reversal in a lot of ways.
Maybe so.
Certainly. I do want to touch on your background a bit and then definitely open up to questions. I'm all about the audience and including all of you. So we'll populate your questions from the slide up. I think they're here. We can pop them on the screen too. For those of you who don't know, Grant is also a Southern rock star out of Auburn, Alabama.
Rock star, I don't know about that.
You still play guitar?
I do play in a band, and I love music, and I came to California to play music, and I've done a lot of that. So it's something that I love, and that's important to me, yeah.
And you've recently opened for a few bands out there, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a sort of an avocation, right? And it's something that I do with a lot of passion. It's hard to manage, frankly, life, but I have a very understanding wife, so it works out.
Hopefully first I should say congratulations on balance that with your career, and also congratulations on the acquisition. Let's go to some great questions here, a whole bunch of them from the audience. Also, I want to remind you, you can also vote to raise the level of the questions. First one, Grant, you can read it yourself too. Do you think in the future people will use matchmaking using their DNA, like genetic DNA, to produce the best offspring instead of love?
Well, I get asked about DNA a lot, and the truth is we could do this today. This isn't an issue of can we, it's should we, and really it's an operational question. I have a tough time getting people to answer 150 questions. Would they really want to swab their cheek and put it in a vial and mail it out? I'm not sure they would. Also, when you're talking to people about matching, geography is way more important than DNA to most people. They want someone in their area. Age, much more important than DNA. They want someone that's in the age range they like. So it's like a lot of things. It makes sense from one angle, but I'm not sure people really want it, not on a scale. It's something that, though, is very doable from a scientific standpoint. And, of course, a lot of you are probably familiar with the research about sniff testing, where they ask women to smell men's T-shirts. And what they did was test the DNA compatibility of the subjects, and what they found was that women were more attracted to the smell of men that they were DNA compatible with.
Looking for the pheromones. Is that right?
Exactly. So there's something here, but it's probably 5-8 years away.
Now, a corollary to that is something that a lot of this audience already knows also in kind of popular culture, and that is generally Asian women do really well on dating apps. Asian men, there's quite a gap between that cohort on a gender basis. Same for black women, in particular in relationship to black men. Can you explain why that phenomenon exists, especially on dating apps?
I'm not sure I can explain why it exists, but these problems definitely reinforce each other. Asian women tend to have the broadest acceptable ethnic range. And therefore, Asian men who have one of the most narrow ethnic ranges find they don't get enough matches. And it totally makes sense that it would be that way. Why do Asian men mostly want to date their own ethnicity? I do not know. But you have the same problem with African Americans or the black population, where the women would prefer their own ethnicity and the men have the widest acceptance of various ethnicities. So these two problems feed into each other. Again, something that it's hard for us to solve because it seems built into society.
Yeah, certainly. Appreciate that answer. I think it does at least develop that conversation, Grant. Time for actually a few more questions, I think. If we can get to them. One of the big tenets behind, or drivers behind eHarmony, is about 30 rather scientific data points it uses. This question goes to the psychology. What does psychology add to your data? And how does your AI add knowledge to the field of psychology?
Well, it's always been hard for us to provide tremendous insight into what we do because we're in such a competitive field. And we've taken, criticism for that. We have always been worried that one of our competitors would just take our method and say, well, now we do this, right? But one of the things we do is we make our data available to academics. There's a paper I just reviewed the other day that is about to be published based on the information that we give. Of course, it's anonymized, and the people are just looking for trending, anonymized information. But that's the way we feel like we can help, because at this point, with so many people passing through our system, we feel like there's a lot of learning there.
Yeah, certainly. And glad to hear that you're contributing to the field and vice versa. That dialogue is really important. That's all the time that we have. I want you to join me in giving a big round of applause to Grant Langston, CV eHarmony. Grant, also, congratulations on the recent acquisition, storied career as a musician as well. Thanks, everyone. Until next time.
Thank you.